Okay, we are now live.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Georgian Bay for May 14, 2021. This morning, there is a public meeting scheduled for 1 consent application and 6 minor variance applications. My name is Tom Hill, and I will chair the meeting today. Before we begin, I will briefly summarize the procedure that will be utilized for the meeting today. First, the Secretary Treasurer will advise the committee as to when, how, and to whom notice of each of the hearings was circulated for the applications being considered. Next, each of the applications will be considered separately. Planning staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the applications and provide any information that is relevant. The Secretary Treasurer will summarize all correspondence on file. From there, the applicant may make a brief presentation if they so choose, and the public will have an opportunity to speak to the applications being considered. After the public forum, the committee will then deliberate on the proposed applications and consider a motion to either pass, defeat, or defer the decision of the applications. The consent application being considered this morning is B21-05 for 764 Honey Harbor Road. The minor variance applications being considered this morning are A21-03 for 312 Portage Road, A21-04 for 314 Stewart Lake Road, A21-05 for 30 Heath Valley Trail, A21-06 for 333 Steep Rock Road, A21-07 for 6 Island 1800 in Cognasheen, and number 6 is A21-08 for 49 Little Chute Landing Road. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to accept the agenda for today. Motion passed by, presented by Member Kuchar and seconded by Member Demke. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion is passed. If I could ask our Secretary Treasurer to provide us with information about the notice of applications.
Notice of each of the applications was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 meters, 500 meters, or 800 meters, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent at least 20 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the application and a key map showing the location of the property. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act 1990.
Thank you very much. And just bear with me for a moment. Our first matter will be the consent application. Number B21-05 for 764 Honey Harbor Road. To the planner, please.
Good morning, committee. I'm just going to bring up the presentation. All right. So the first public meeting today is for consent application B2105. It is submitted by Clint and Jeremy Lamoureux, and the address is at 764 Honey Harbor Road. So just an overview of the application. It does propose to create one new residential lot with approximately 76.2 meters of frontage on Honey Harbor Road and an area of approximately 0.81 hectares or 2 acres. The retained lands are proposed to have a frontage of approximately 327.8 meters on Honey Harbor Road and an area of approximately 21.7 hectares. The retained lot is to contain the existing buildings and structures, and the severed lot would be vacant. This application is a resubmission of former consent application B1315, which was approved by the committee in 2013. The applicant did not satisfy the conditions or all of the conditions that were imposed as part of that decision within the timeline that the Planning Act allows for, and has resubmitted a new application with the same request. So here we have an overview location map of the subject property outlined in gray, or sorry, in black, filled in gray, located on Honey Harbor Road, just north of the Port 7 settlement area, in between Bass Bay Road and Muskie Bay Road. The 2018 aerial imagery showing the property boundaries with the approximate location of where the severed lot would be. This is a copy of the survey that was required as a condition of the previous consent application that the applicants did complete, just showing the proposed lot, the 76 meters of frontage on Honey Harbor Road, and an area of about 2 acres. So here we have some site photos of the subject property looking both north and south down Honey Harbor Road from the existing driveway that goes into where the proposed severed lot would be. And just some photos looking across Honey Harbor Road at the existing neighboring development. So with this application, the previous consent application, when it was heard, there was a different official plan in effect for the township. And since that time, now through this application, there has been some policy changes, especially at the township level in terms of the official plan policies, which requires an increased lot frontage and a minimum lot area requirement. Unfortunately, those policies, they just weren't in effect at the time before. So when staff reviewed the application today under today's policies, we did come to the conclusion that as submitted, the application is not consistent with the PPS. It does, however, conform to the District of Muskoka official plan, but unfortunately this does not conform to the township official plan or zoning bylaw. So we did receive comments from the District of Muskoka. They had no objection to the application subject to the recommended conditions, and 231 letters of support were received from the community. So before the committee, there are 3 options this morning. One is approve the application subject to the recommended conditions, and staff have prepared a list of those conditions for your review. 2 would be to defer the application to allow the applicant to revise the frontage of the proposed severed lot on Honey Harbor Road to better conform to the applicable policies of the township official plan. Or 3, deny the application based on the information in the planning report. So I will just quickly go over these conditions that staff have prepared. So the first being that a reference plan be prepared, which was done as part of the previous consent application. A copy of the legal documents in preparation for review in order to facilitate the transfer of land. The owners obtain a zoning bylaw amendment to recognize the intended use of the severed lands and ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw with respect to frontage and area requirements, and implement any recommendations of the MECP. A payment 5% in lieu of parkland dedication based on the value of the severed lands. Municipal taxes are to be paid to date. The next 3 conditions are the ones that the district requested be included. The first being a consent agreement with the district regarding the location of wells in relation to the district road. Written confirmation that entrance permits were obtained for both the severed and retained lands in accordance with the district policies. And written confirmation from the MECP that the proposed development will not have any negative impacts on species at risk or their habitat, and that any recommendations be appropriately implemented. The next condition here is just confirmation of the ability of the lot to contain a well and septic to service the property. And finally, that Section 53 of the Planning Act apply to any future transaction involving the land. So that concludes my presentation for this morning. If the committee has any questions, and I believe that the applicant is also in attendance today as well.
Thank you, Brad. I understand the applicant is present, although I don't see them. Oh, there we are. Okay, I see them now. Mr. Lamoureux, do you have any additional comments that you wish to add to what the planner provided so far?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I just need to say my piece about the correspondence.
Thank you.
231 letters of support were received from the public, and 2 letters of no objection were received from Bell Canada and the District of Muskoka.
Thank you. Mr. Lamoureux, are there any comments that you wish to add to what the planner provided? I see you're on mute, Mr. Lamoureux. You need to unmute. There should be a button in the bottom left corner that will allow you to unmute your connection.
Can you hear me now?
There. Yes, there you go.
Oh, perfect. Sorry, I'm new to Zoom. My apologies. No, everything that it sounded pretty good. As I said, we got quite a bit of the community and everybody around Honey Harbor Road just to kind of take a look at the lot and people that know the area as well. And they gave me fairly good review as far as the impact that would be created with the new lot. I did meet prior in 2013 all of the required zoning bylaws at that time. I do know that the new official plan obviously has been changed since that time. So I'm prepared to work with you with anything I need to do as far as any type of environmental studies, etc.
Okay, thank you very much. I noticed that we have Kira Lamoureux as well. Is there any comment that you would like to add, Kira? You're still oh, there you are.
Hi, sorry. No, I actually have no comments at this time. I was just leaving that to my husband. He knows a lot more about it than I do.
Okay, thank you very much. I do not see any members of the public logged in for comment. So seeing none, I will close the public section of the meeting and bring it before the committee for any questions or comment. And we will begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Brad, for that presentation. I find myself a little perplexed with such a large piece of retained land. Would it not be possible for this proposed severed lot to be enlarged and a larger frontage? So it does meet with the current zoning bylaws and official plan.
Okay. That question would be for Mr. Lamoureux, I would suspect.
Can you hear me again?
Yep.
Yes. So actually, so what it is I was severing off of my uncle's land, and at the time in 2013, your actual bylaw was 200 feet of road frontage. So what we did was when we severed, we got it surveyed off at 250 feet. and then with 2 acres deep. As far as changing that, I just don't know if, like, my uncle didn't sound quite like he would be prepared to sever off more of his land to me. So we were hoping that we could work with what got passed prior in 2013.
Yeah, I'll actually wait and see what some of my other fellow members have to say about this.
Okay, thank you. Member Jarvis, you're muted.
Yeah, no,
There
my
you go.
questions were similar to Mr. Matthews with regards to what could be done. I'm curious. This is to Brad. If we were to say here that he has to comply with current zoning, which means he'll have to work with the larger size and frontage, would he have to get a new survey for that?
So through the chair to Member Jarvis, if the applicant was to increase the lot frontage of the proposed severed lands, they would need to have a revised reference plan prepared by a surveyor showing the increased frontage of the lot that they propose to sever.
Okay, that's it. I mean, I'm quite sympathetic to Mr. Lemeroux's situation, and sorry to see that things sort of got caught between the changes in the bylaws as of 2014. However, I feel we've got to abide by what we've put in place. That's the whole reason we had it there, and we did it in 2014. So I'm kind of reluctant to let it go as is at this time. Thank you. That's it, Tom.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Kutsier.
Thank you, Chair Hill. I do have a few questions. First of all, before I get into that, I don't think I've ever seen any application with 231 letters of support. Clearly, Mr. Lamoureux has more friends than enemies, and I think that speaks well to him and the community for being that interested in this. So I'm very impressed. I recognize some of those names that were on the long list. That being said, I do have a few questions. One of the conditions of approval that you listed, Mr. Oster, was parkland fee. But I believe I read in Mr. Lamoureux's correspondence that he paid a parkland fee back in 2013. Do we have any idea whether, if he did pay a fee, that was refunded? Because I hate to see somebody paying the fee twice. And I'm not sure that's necessarily a decision of this committee, but it was one question that came to mind.
Yeah, so through the chair, the applicant did provide a receipt that was submitted, that they submitted payment of parkland to the township. That would have been based off of the value of the land at the time when the law was previously created. So what we would be proposing through this, in fairness, would just be to credit essentially the previous amount that was paid towards any future payment of parkland.
All right, thank you. My next question is, when I saw the original application back in 2012, 2013, I noticed that the land at that point was commercial, zone C3 commercial, and now, according to your report, it's zoned rural. That to me is somewhat of a significant change, and I don't know if we have any history as to why that was changed. And subsequent to that is, if this land was currently zoned C3 commercial, would it also require the current, is it 500 feet frontage, or would 250 feet frontage be acceptable if it was under a commercial zoning?
So through the chair, that's correct. The property was zoned C3 under the former zoning bylaw. In 2014, when the township brought in the new and current zoning bylaw, the entire property was downzoned from C3 to the rural and EP PSW zone. Staff weren't able to find exactly the rationale behind that. However, we do understand it likely to be recognizing the uses that were present on the property at the time when the new zoning bylaw came into effect. If the property was presently zoned C3, we would still be recommending the inclusion of the rezoning as a condition to recognize the intended use of the subject lands that the applicant is proposing, and to also recognize the frontage and area requirements.
All right, thank you. I guess from my perspective, one, I'm a little bit surprised that we require 500-foot frontage on Honey Harbor Road, given its location, but I'm not in a position to question the what was behind all that when that decision was made half a dozen years ago or more. And from what I can understand from the history, it seems like everything was done to sever this lot back in 2013, except the final registration in Bracebridge or something like that. It was like 95% of the work was done. And I hate to see us penalize someone for just missing one step in the whole procedure. So even though I fully recognize that it's going against the current rural zoning, I think under the circumstances, and given that it's on the Honey Harbor Road just north of the Port Severn urban area and all that, I think this might be, under the circumstances, worthy of an exception. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kuchar. Member Demke.
I would echo the comments of Mr. Kuchar. Sorry I missed everybody else's, but was just for one thing, this has been going on for a few years. So everything seems to have been done properly one area. So I'd be in favor of trying to support this.
Thank you, Member Demke. And just while I have the opportunity, Member Demke, it may help if you turn off your video. Your audio reception is spotty, and that may help. Thank you. Which is why my video is off. Just to, before I read the motion, I agree with the comments made earlier. I think this was a timing issue. All the proper steps were taken back in 2013. I was actually on the committee then, and this application was approved. It's unfortunate that the rest of the conditions were not met, but I think it's more of a timing issue. And I would be in favor of approving this application. So just hang on for a second here. I have a motion moved by David Matthews, seconded by Member Demke. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment provisionally approves the consent application B21-05 to permit the creation of one residential lot from the lands known municipally as 764 Honey Harbor Road, subject to the following: that a reference plan of the severed parcel shall be prepared and duly registered by an Ontario land surveyor, and one copy filed with the Secretary Treasurer of the committee. A draft copy of the reference plan shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer for review and approval prior to registration on title. And that a copy of the electronic registration in preparation draft deed for the severed land shall be provided to the Secretary Treasurer of the committee, together with a signed acknowledgement and direction, so that the consent certificate may be issued. And C, that the owners obtain a zoning bylaw amendment at their sole cost in order to, one, recognize the intended use of the severed lands and to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw with respect to frontage and area requirements, and two, implement any recommendations of the MECP. D, that a payment of 5% in lieu of parkland dedication shall be paid to the severed land for the severed land in accordance with section 51, subsection 1 of the Planning Act, acceptable to the Township of Georgian Bay in cash or check. The township shall retain an appraiser at the applicant's expense to prepare the appraisal in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. The value of the land cannot otherwise be agreed on. And E, that municipal taxes are paid to date. F, and that the lands be subject to an agreement with the district municipality of Muskoka pursuant to section 51, subsection 26 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, respecting the location of wells in relation to the district road. G, that written confirmation that the entrance permits are obtained for both the severed and retained lots in accordance with the requirements of District Bylaw 87-50. And H, that the written confirmation from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, i.e. overall benefit permit or letter of advice, that the proposed development will not have a negative impacts on species at risk or their habitat, and that recommendations are appropriately implemented. And I, that the ability of the severed lot to accommodate a well and septic tank be confirmed by a licensed septic installer. And finally, J, that section 50, subsection 3 of the Planning Act is applied to all future transactions involving the subject lands. Now that may seem like a long list, but I believe Mr. Oster has explained that to the applicant, and these are pretty standard conditions based on the fact that we are looking to move forward with that application. And as you can see there, the next step in this would require this application being brought before council for an application for a zoning bylaw amendment. So having read that and made that, I will, I have.
Mr. Hill, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Could I ask one question before we vote?
Yes, sir.
Usually there's a time limit of 3 years that's applied to a lot of these applications. Is there a, I didn't hear anything of such in the conditions, and I wondered whether there's just a standard 1 year, 3 year, so that perhaps Mr. Lamoureux doesn't get caught up in this again, should this be approved.
Would you respond to that, please, Mr. Oster?
So through the chair to Member Matthews, the 3-year condition that's generally imposed is just put on variances. In this case, the Planning Act only allows 1 year for the applicant to complete these conditions in order to essentially finalize the severance and create the lot. So even though it's not specifically listed in the conditions, the Planning Act does implement that as a requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Oster, and I hope Mr. Lamoureux paid close attention to that.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments from the committee before I ask for a vote? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, the application is approved. Thank you. And I would advise Mr. Lamoureux that there is an appeal period following the decision if you wish. I doubt if you will, but just so that you are aware. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, and I will await our next applicant. Okay, good morning and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment for May 14th. Our next application is A21-03, and I see we have a couple of people joining us. Just briefly explain the process this morning. To begin with, the planning department will describe your application and any impacts it may have. Following that, the applicant will be given an opportunity to speak or add any additional information to the planner's comments. Following that, any members of the public that may be in attendance would be allowed to speak. Following the public input, we will close the public section and bring the meeting before the committee for a decision to either approve, deny, or defer the application. And following that, there is an appeal period if you're unhappy with the outcome. So having said all that, I would ask the planner to proceed, please. Before that, I would ask if there's been any correspondence on this application. And I see Mercia is muted. There she is.
Sorry about that. This generally comes after the planner's presentation, but one letter of support was received from Alan Tumber and one letter of no objection from Susan Kingston.
That was a test, Mercia. Thank you. And to the planner, please.
Thank you. Can everyone see my screen now? If I can get a nod.
Yeah, we can't hear you very well.
You can't hear me very well. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry about that. So our next application was submitted by Hillary and Mark MacArthur for property located at 312 Portage Road. The applicant has requested a minor variance to facilitate the construction of an in-water boathouse. So here we have the table identifying what section of the bylaw they're requesting relief. So as you can see here, currently in the bylaw, you're required a frontage of 31 meters to be permitted to construct an in-water boathouse. And as you can see here, the applicant's frontage is just shy of that at 30.5 meters. So I think it's pretty clear that obviously they're approximately 0.5 meters under. So again, this is why they're in front of committee today to request that relief to be able to build. So here I have a location map of the subject lands. As you can see here, they are fronting onto Baxter Lake, just north of the 400. And just to confirm, this area is not located within any identified community plans within the official plan. Here we have an aerial image of the subject lands here, as you can see. And here we have a general overview of the site plan that does identify, and this was confirmed on a survey, that frontage of that 30.5 meters. So essentially the applicants are just looking for permission to be able to build a boathouse to the smallest size permitted within the bylaw along their frontage. And again, it's important to note that within this area in this zone, there is no maximum cumulative width requirement or anything like that that would apply to this property. As I know, many committee members are used to, for instance, on 6 Mile Lake, there's that cumulative width. So this does not apply here. And again, just zooming in a bit more, and I do apologize for the graininess, but this was submitted with the base survey attached. So this is the approximate area of where the boathouse will be, and they're identifying that they are able to meet all requirements otherwise, including the 5-meter setback requirement from the side lot line. So I provided here the chart that's in the zoning bylaw and just identifying that this is essentially how this works. So depending on the lot frontage of a property, this then dictates the size of a boathouse that you're able to build to. And so again, in the MacArthur's case, their property is 30.5 meters. So they would fall within this top area of it being prohibited. However, the highlighted area is what they're essentially asking permission to be permitted to build. So they would be building at the lowest possible size and scale permitted in the bylaw. So I have some site photos here for those who may not have been able to attend the site. So this is a view of the front wall of the dwelling. And as you can see in the picture to the right, that steep slope that starts to occur towards the water. And then again, looking down the slope to the shoreline and some of that existing vegetation that is located in the front yard. And then again, the other side of the stairwell going down, that existing vegetation and steep slope. And then here we have a view from the dock looking up towards the property. As you can see, there is an existing shed that is located there. It is a condition of approval that that shed be removed once the boathouse is constructed. So staff have discussed that with the applicant, and that has become a condition of staff's recommendation to committee to today. And then here is a photo of an adjacent property that does have a similar boathouse. There is quite a few boathouses on Baxter Lake. If any of you were able to do a site visit, you would have identified those as well. So the applicants are looking to build something similar to the surrounding area. So a general overview, planning staff are of the opinion that the application conforms to and does not conflict with any of the applicable planning policies and does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act for a minor variance. We received 2 letters of support prior to the public meeting, and we have not received any additional correspondence since my report was published on Tuesday. So Development Services Report 2021-38 does recommend approval of the application, subject to the conditions outlined. And here, again, committee is quite familiar with these similar conditions: municipal taxes being paid up to date, that the approval of the variance is granted and fixed to the subject site plan extent, location, and scale and use contemplated, a site plan control application. And I did bold in here that that existing shed structure condition be included, as well as they would have 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the approved structure. So that concludes my PowerPoint presentation. And as you know, the applicant is here to answer any questions, as well as myself. So please advise. And Chair, there were no other members of the public that did register to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. I see the applicant is in attendance and muted. I would say to Ms. MacArthur, is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments?
Good morning. Sorry. I think Victoria hit on everything that we wanted to discuss and point out. And like I said, we got the letters. There are several boathouses on the lake, and we just want to build a minimal. And that's about it. No.
Okay, thank you very much. I see there are no members of the public, so I will close the public session of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Kuchar.
I'm afraid, as boring as it may be, I have no questions or comments. I would be in favor of this request. Thank you.
Member Jarvis.
I see that this sort of fits in with what I would consider to be a minor variance, so I have no objection in that regard. I do have a question though for Ms. Amelia, and that is there's currently a dock structure there. Would that remain?
Through the chair to Member Jarvis, it is my understanding that yes, the boathouse would be situated just to the east of that. Sorry, I was getting my directions right. Just to the east of that, to the left side in the photo, it would be situated up there, so they could still use the dock for swimming, etc.
Okay, and we have there are no issues as far as planning is concerned.
Correct. We double checked and made sure that there were no other applicable provisions that apply here. And again, that cumulative width isn't an issue, so yeah, they're good to go. They're lucky in that sense, given their lot frontage.
Yeah, no, I noticed their topography sort of dictates they got to do something like this. I wouldn't want to be climbing their stairs every 2 minutes, that's for sure. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Demkew.
Hopefully you can hear me now. I did visit the site my little legs took 102 steps to get all the way down and all the way up, but it's very well marked. I really like the big signs that are up now, and this one was marked at the road and at the boathouse itself area. So that was good. I see no problems at all. It was very well laid out, and I think there was a little email that came to talk about what they want to do, and that's basically not have to haul stuff up and down. So it seems very appropriate to me. I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Member Demke. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in agreement. This certainly qualifies as minor variance in my opinion, so I would support this application.
Okay, thank you. I will read the application. Just a moment, please.
You still with us, Tom?
Yes, I'm just having a little problem here with, but nothing that we can't solve. Okay, I have a motion before me, moved by Member Jarvis, seconded by Member Demke. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A21-03 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 312 Portage Road to facilitate the construction of an in-water boathouse on lands with less frontage than what is required.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if anyone else, if he froze for anybody else there.
Yeah, went quiet on me too.
Quiet.
Approved.
Oh, I think he's back.
Tom, you're breaking up. You're going to have to reread, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, would it be easier for me to just put the conditions back on the screen quickly for everyone to read, or is everyone comfortable and you can just call the vote?
Yeah, I think we're all familiar with the conditions. So let's just pass that stage and go to the vote. And I would ask all those in favor to signify by raising their hand. Okay, it would appear the decision is unanimous. The application is approved. Thank you very much for joining us today, MacArthur's, and congratulations on your approval.
You've gone quiet again there, Tom.
Okay, our next application is A21-04 for 314 Stewart Lake Road. To the planner, please.
Brad, you're muted.
There we go. Thanks. All right. So our next application is minor variance A2104. The applicant is Nick Knightis, and the address is 314 Stewart Lake Road, located on Stewart Lake in Mactier. So the applicant has requested variances to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. At this point in time, planning staff are recommending deferral of the application pending confirmation that appropriate on-site sewage services can be provided, which we will provide some further detail to through the presentation. So the application does propose a reduced side yard or interior yard setback to a detached garage. 5 meters is required under the zoning bylaw, where 2 meters is being proposed, so a 3-meter reduction. Here we have the overview location map of the subject property located on the peninsula of Stewart Lake, with the subject property shown here, just northeast of Mactier. The 2018 aerial imagery, you can see the subject property outlined in red. The property lines are a little bit skewed on the map. They should be shifted a little bit further to the south. You can kind of get an idea of the approximate property kind of set in here. So this is the site plan that the applicant did provide with the application. There is a dock at the shore, the existing dwelling with an addition that is proposed. The addition would be in compliance with all of the zoning bylaw provisions. A few small accessory buildings, including a sleeping cabin, and then the proposed garage. So this property was before the committee back in, I believe it was 2013, where they did receive approval for an increased lot coverage of 12%. At that time, when the application was considered, the former zoning bylaw only required a 2-meter side yard setback. So all of this development was considered and approved by the committee at the time. However, under the township's current zoning bylaw, it did increase that side yard setback in shoreline residential properties to 5 meters. So therefore, in order to facilitate the construction of this garage as proposed, relief is required to the side yard setback provision. So here we have some elevation drawings of the proposed garage and some site photos just showing the location of where the garage would be in the back corner of the property, just off of the driveway that comes in. So you can see it a little bit better here, looking from the back of the dwelling out towards the road. You can see the location here is where the garage is proposed to be located. And then standing on the dock, looking at the property from the water, due to the topography of the lands, it does appear to that the proposed garage would be screened. So a thorough policy analysis has not yet been completed by staff at this time, as we are recommending deferral pending confirmation of sewage or septic system design. The building department did comment that through the addition to the dwelling, a replacement of that existing septic system would be required. So at this point, the deferral is based on wanting to ensure that an appropriate septic system can be installed on the property and the location of the garage not limit the ability to fit that septic system on there. The District of Muskoka did comment stating that they had no objection. And the township's environmental consultant also reviewed the application because it is within 120 meters of type 1 fish habitat. And they did state that they did not feel a fish habitat impact assessment would be required because the proposed works are removed enough from the shoreline that there would be no direct impacts, and any indirect impacts could be appropriately mitigated. So through Development Services Report 2021-39, staff are recommending deferral of the application pending confirmation of appropriate on-site sewage services. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. And the applicant, I believe, was in attendance. Oh, he is here.
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, have there been any correspondence in this application?
3 letters of support were received from Andrea Dale, Carrie McGrath, and Susan Pulfer. 3 letters of no objection were received from Jean and John Harrison, Lucinda Becker, and the District of Muskoka.
Thank you. I see the applicant is present. Do you have any comments to add to what the planner has provided already?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. Thank you. No, I think Brad has touched on everything. I just want to confirm that we're willing to do whatever it takes to to get this done. So if it entails replacing the septic, we're willing to do that and provide any plan. Very importantly, this is nestled, where we're proposing the 2-meter side yard setback, where we're proposing this garage. It would be very difficult if we were at the 5-meter mark, because we would need to have garage doors facing the street. We would need to somewhat create a new driveway to get into the back of the property. We would have to request, perhaps Municipal Works to extend my driveway over the culvert. We would have to remove more trees than we would want, really. And so if we can keep it at the 2-meter, it would be very cost effective for us, and we'd appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I see there are no members of the public in attendance, so I would bring this application before the committee for questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question. I noticed on the plan that showed a proposed stone patio. I know that's not part of this application, but curiosity has me asking, I guess it still fits, Brad, overall with the site plan and lot coverage?
So through the chair to Member Matthews, correct. So it is set back more than 20 meters to the shoreline, that stone patio. So the site alteration bylaw doesn't apply to that proposal. That's part of this proposal as well, because when the chief building official reviewed the site plan and noted that stone patio over the septic area, that was a concern to him as well. So that's why we're just needing some additional details on the redesign of that septic system.
Okay, thank you. I would most definitely support the deferral, and I also give kudos to the applicant that they're willing to upgrade the septic should that be required, because that's one of the #1 things in the township of Georgian Bay is the quality of our water, and septic has a big impact on that. So I would support the deferral at this point.
Thank you, Member Matthews. Member Demkew.
Mr. Chair, I certainly, I was at the site and looked it over. It certainly seems to be the only real appropriate spot for this. One question I have, though, was there's some hydro lines, hydro wires, guy wires that seem to head back towards that. And I don't know if they would be impacted or you'd have to do anything there. Maybe the applicant can answer that.
Sure. Yeah, we would have to redirect the electrical to the garage, and then from the garage we would redirect back to the house.
Yeah, it was the guy wires that come from the hydro poles that seem to come right into the area of where the building might go. Maybe my.
No,
maybe
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It would. So we're planning some underground lines there.
Okay, that answers that. No, that was very good.
Yeah.
You talked about the trees, so I'm in support of a situation with that, but I'm okay.
Thank you, Member Demkew. Member Jarvis.
A couple of questions. First off, I understand what's going on here, but it indicates that there's a personal or just storage use. The construction design of that garage leads me to believe there'll be some sort of accommodation above. Is that something that's being considered here or not?
Yeah, so through the chair to Member Jarvis, I do believe that it's the intention of the applicant to essentially relocate the sleeping cabin that's on the property to be above the garage, to kind of consolidate those structures into one, essentially.
So is that one of the reasons why the septic is being reconsidered?
Correct.
Okay, that helps me on that one. Thank you. Yeah, I know there are a number of letters that came in, and they're all letters of support one way or the other. I'm curious to know if any of those letters was from the neighbor that is 2 meters, the other side of that lot line, and whether they're okay with it.
I can comment on that if that's okay. Yeah, the Harrisons are the abutting property. They're in full support. And they, as a matter of fact, have the exact same garage on their property at a 2-meter side yard setback, and they fully support our project.
Good to keep the neighbors happy.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Kuchar.
I just to basically repeat, I'd be fully in favor of this application. I'd say, I'm not sure if I saw the condition subject to the removal of the sleeping cabin if it's being replaced by the combination of the garage. But I absolutely respect the recommendation for deferral in the meantime to make sure that the septic can be suitably located, that everything will work, and because that is obviously of great importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kuchar. I will read the the motion. I have a motion from moved by David Matthews, seconded by Peter Kuchar. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers the minor variance application A21-04 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 314 Stewart Lake Road to facilitate the construction of a detached garage with a reduced interior side yard setback of 2 meters where 5 meters is permitted, pending confirmation that appropriate sewage services can be provided. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. The application is deferred. Thank you very much. And we will move to our next application, please.
Just going to bring in the applicant here. All right. So the next minor variance. Oh, sorry.
The next minor variance application is A21-05 for 30 Heath Valley Trail. To the planner, please.
So this minor variance, A21-05, the applicant is Terry Harkness, and the subject lands are 30 Heath Valley Trail on Little Lake. So the applicant has requested variances to facilitate the construction, facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing detached garage. So here we have an overview of the 2 variances that are requested to facilitate that construction. The first being an increased maximum ground floor area for the detached garage of 126.4 square meters, where 112 square meters is permitted. And second is an increased lot coverage to 16.6%, where 10% is permitted. So this is the location map of the subject property. You can see it located here off of Heath Valley Trail, just at the end of Lone Pine Road. The property is located on a small bay off of Little Lake. The 2018 aerial imagery, you can see the existing development on the property, being the boat port at the shoreline, the existing dwelling and deck, 2 small accessory buildings that are proposed to be removed through if they constructed the addition to the garage, and also the subject garage itself. The site plan that was provided by the applicant with the application, showing the wood dock and boat port, the existing dwelling with the portion of deck that has been removed, the sleeping cabin that also has been removed, as well as the 2 accessory buildings, smaller sheds that are to be removed as well. And then showing the existing detached garage at 840 square meters, 840 square feet, with the proposed addition shown there as well. This is the elevation drawing of the garage. So this portion here is what is existing to this day. And then the proposed addition of a a third bay on the side of the garage. So here are some site visit photos. You can see the existing detached garage located here in the rear yard of the property. Again, that garage itself, and this is one of those smaller accessory buildings that are proposed to be removed. The shoreline area of the property, you can see the boat port here, as well as the dwelling and that decking that is on it. As noted in the staff report, there is a large rock outcropping on the property here. So that would act to screen the proposed garage from the shoreline area. So through planning staff's review of the application, especially given the character of the area being developed with mostly single or double car garages in the rear yard of the property, as well as the disproportionate amount of the lot area that is proposed to be developed with buildings and structures. In this case, planning staff didn't feel that it maintained an appropriate balance of the natural state of the property to the built form. And for those reasons, staff did come up a little bit short in being able to support the application, and therefore are recommending denial of the application. There were 2 letters of support or no objection that were received as part of the circulation. So that concludes my presentation. If the committee has any questions, I would be happy to answer, and the applicant is also in attendance today.
Thank you, Brad. Madam Secretary, do you have any correspondence on this application?
1 letter of support was received from Don Bernier, and 1 letter of no objection was received from Claudio Dean.
Thank you. I see that the applicant is present. And Mr. Harkness, do you have anything to add to the planner's comments?
Yeah, I would like to say a few comments, and then I have a small 5-slide presentation to add a little bit of context as well. Is the audio okay? Can you just give me a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning, committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I apologize for my mobile office here. I'm down at the boat launch in Port Severn just to get better connectivity. And I think probably a bit of context is appropriate here to go along with the good work that Brad and the team have already done. Basically, I moved up here, bought this place in 2016, and it's our first cottage, and we didn't really know what to expect. And since we arrived here, well, you know, with respect to the cottage, we had a lot that had many structures built on it since 1975, and one of them was a beautiful looking cottage, which happened to be sinking into the terra firma because it didn't have the proper foundation underneath it. So right from day one, the project turned into a little bit of a labor camp, and it's been ongoing ever since. But within the first week of ownership, I was introduced to the Georgian Bay personnel, planning and building. And I got to say that over the last number of years, they've been absolutely excellent to deal with. So one of the things we found was the Georgian Bay Township team was very customer focused, and that's been great. In addition, we found a group of neighbors in the area that I would consider second to none. We all get along, we work together very closely, and we're very like-minded. And the more time we spent up here, basically led us to make a decision about 6 months ago that we're going to sell our house in Alliston, and we're going to retire here. So with that in mind, we're quite outdoorsy. We love the Port Severn area because we're snowmobilers. we're boaters. We've got an ATV, and currently a lot of that stuff gets stored in Alliston. And with us moving up here, we're just not going to have enough storage because we like to park inside and keep everything out of sight versus being stored outside. So that's what led us to the application of this additional storage, was because when we move here, we want to have a appropriate footprint to keep everything safe and secure and indoors out of sight. As well, we want to take the lot and we want to declutter it. We want to absolutely keep the character of the subdivision in the area intact. So if yeah, I may, I'll put up a PowerPoint here, and I've never used this version of Zoom before, but let's see if it works. Okay, so can you just give me an audible if you can see that?
I think, Mr. Harkness, you just need to make you a co-host first.
Okay.
You might need to get, if you just wait one moment, I think we'll need to get.
Sure.
So just give me one moment, please. Thanks.
Yeah. And I did send a copy to Mercia this morning, just in case something goes wrong. She can toggle probably.
So, Mr. Harkness, you are a co-host now. So if you wanted to try again and see if it'll work.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. There should be a slide up there with Harkness minor variance as a title. Are you seeing that yet? Maybe I have to share. Okay, let me screen share. There we go. What about now?
Nope.
On the bottom, Terry, there should be a green share screen button.
Yeah, I can get the screen share, Brad. It shows that it's sharing. Nothing's come through yet, I guess. Let me just try it again. Sorry, folks, for the delay. Being respectful of everybody's time today, I'll keep this brief. Anything yet?
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
Excellent. So Brad and I shared many minutes on the phone together talking about the vision and the plan. One thing I didn't do well enough was to provide the visualization of it all, and that's what the next couple slides will help do. So I apologize, Brad, and to the Georgian Bay group for me not communicating better in this regard. Hopefully these slides for the Georgian Bay team and the Committee of Adjustment will provide a little bit more specific context to what we're trying to do here. So when we bought the place in May of 2016, we had it surveyed right off the bat, and this was a survey. And on the lot at the time, we had a bunkie, we had a shed, we had another shed, then we had a fairly large deck section on the cottage. And we removed the bunkie right off the bat, and we put a new septic system in, an upgraded system. At the time, that was our job one, just to make sure we're covered off there. We had removed the section of the decking with the building permit for the cottage addition. We plan to move the additional 2 sheds. So the ultimate goal when we're done with this is to have a cottage, and a garage, and none of the other clutter with the additional outbuildings. My lot coverage calculation of 13.9 when we purchased actually did not include the boat slip. From the aerial photo, it's very clear that that big green chunk down there looks like a permanent building. Up close, actually, it's a soft top cover seasonal tarp that we put over in the summer and then remove in the winter. But I'll mention that in a second. But one of the things to recognize that it's kind of hard if you haven't had a chance to visit the site is that more than 50% of the lot is unusable due to large outcropping of rock and the position of the septic system. So we're really limited in where I can store stuff. So currently, for any who have visited the site, beside the existing garage, there's a storage area, and that's really my only storage area. So for anything I would park there, or put there, pile there in the future, it's visible from the roadway, and that's one of the objectives as well, is to get it indoors and then get that blocked from the road view. Now on the boat slip cover, that accounts for 312 square feet. And as Brad corrected me, according to zoning, that actually would be applicable for lot coverage. Now, if that's going to cause a problem, by the end of today, I can have that cover rolled up and put away and remove the metal structure through the weekend. The boat that's in there has got its own cover. It's not a really big deal, but if I had to choose between the cover here and gaining approval for lot coverage and to enable the addition, I would remove this tarp in an instant. So really, that's a bit of a non-issue for me. On the next page, here, and can I just get an audible? Did that change?
No, everything's fine.
Okay, so you've got a picture of the two houses now?
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for that. The house on the left is what it looked like when we bought it. At that time, it had the bunkie up to the top left, which has been removed and a new septic installed. Looking at the view from the lake, the goal that we were trying to achieve through the renovation was to keep that general look and feel, the character, so to speak. And the picture on the right is the way it looks today. Again, the big thing was that the building was sinking because it had inappropriate footings. And when we replaced those with the foundation, we were able to landscape a little bit better and add those concrete steps in. And I didn't mention this before, and again, part of my failure in communication. These steps that you'll see that dominate the view, that's 168 square feet of stairway. Those will be removed as part of our landscaping plan next year, because once the house is finished, we can actually go down through the basement and access the waterfront instead of walking down all those stairs. So those stairs that dominate the picture will also clean up the waterfront quite a bit more with next year's landscaping plan. Now, the goal is to take the general concept here that we apply to the from the lake view of the stone on the bottom and the Mayback wood siding and things like that, which is getting installed next month, and then move it over and apply that same criteria, if you will, design criteria, to the garage. Now, the next slide, can I just get an audible? It's changed. You're seeing two garages now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So admittedly, and I apologize for the view of that garage. I mean, it's I didn't build it. It was there when we bought the place. All the gravel was around there, and there was really it was pretty featureless, pretty industrial looking, as a matter of fact, with the metal siding. and the whole bit. Our goal of this area is to put on the addition and then finish off that whole garage with brand new siding and soffit fascia, shingles, so that it's going to match the architecture of the house. The idea being that it fits into that character and it doesn't, look like it dominates. So while I don't have a full artist rendering, and I'm not that good a drawer to show it to you from that perspective, this garage on the right hand side, 3 cars with a ribbon of fusion stone on the bottom, windows on the side which would face my neighbor Bernier, who's fully in support. Him and I have talked at length about this. And then the Maybach siding and the finishing, that would take away that dominating industrial looking structure. And again, the goal is sell the house in Alliston, move to Port Severn full time, have two main structures. We got a house and we got a garage, and everything's inside. So when the boat comes out of the water, it can fit in the garage. Right now it can't. Along with the rest of the stuff, park vehicles in there in the winter and stuff like that. So that's really our goal that we're trying to achieve here. And the last slide, just to summarize it, in the context of this minor variance application, we've got excellent neighbors. They've been more than supportive all the way through. Don Bernier on the one side, he's just retired himself. He has no issue with it. We work very closely together. I got lots of side yard there. I'm not butting up against his place. I'm getting rid of 3 storage buildings and improving the visual impact from the street view. Again, fast forward when the project's done, you'll have the finishing and there'll be landscaping added up along the left side of it, and just to soften it and make it fit. And of course, it's not visible from the water, which is a big thing. It's important for me as a resident that that be enforced by the Georgian Bay Township. And really what it boils down to is when we take everything and look at what was there in 2016 and what will be there when we're done, it's an additional 248 square feet of storage. Again, removing the bunkie and the sheds and everything. So the lot coverage originally was 13.9, and the final lot coverage of approved that we're looking for is 15%. So, we hope to gain your approval on this, and I just appreciate the opportunity to state the a little bit more of a visual point of view in this project. So that's what I had for you guys. Hopefully the sound was okay, and I'll leave it with you, and hopefully we can gain your support.
Thank you, Mr. Harkness. And you could stop screen sharing at this point, and I think that would help.
Okay, done.
Okay. Appreciate the time you took there, Mr. Harkness, and I do not see any members of the public in attendance. So seeing that, I will close the public section and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And I will begin with Member Demke.
You, Mr. Chairman Hill. Brad, given what Mr. Harkness presented, is there any change in thought of, has it changed any perspective on what you were presenting?
So through the chair to Member Demke, the proposed lot coverage although decreased from what was submitted or applied for, and that notice was given for by 1.5%. It is a decrease, but I think that, if the committee was interested in, maybe reconsidering the application, I would recommend a deferral to allow for staff to really consider all of the existing development and what the final proposed changes would be, understanding now that the applicant is, proposing to remove that boat port. Staff would need some time to take all of that into consideration.
Well, I thank you for that. I was impressed with Mr. Hart is trying to making this happen. If that's the case, I would more favor than denial at this point. We hear what the members say.
Thank you, Member Demkew. Member Jarvis.
Yeah, I'm curious. The buildings that have been removed, what would be the cumulative square footage of those buildings be? Maybe that's for Mr. Harkness to answer. I don't know.
Yeah, I have just a second here. There was I do have it, the 347 square feet of the cumulative square feet is what's been removed. So we removed the 347. When we finish removing the buildings, it'll be 347.
And so 347 with those three buildings out, and you're proposing to add 520, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I applaud the concept of removing the clutter and consolidating. I see no issue with the design concept. I don't think removing anything down by the shoreline is going to make much difference. I mean, you're still using the shoreline for its intended purposes. I always will decry the shoreline alteration that's gone on over the years, whether that's Mr. Harkness's responsibility or not, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's got nothing to do with this anyway. But really, I'm in favor of this, despite the lot coverage changes. But I appreciate, as I said, the fact that we've effectively removed three buildings and replaced them with something attached to the garage, which is well set back from the water line and in line with, I guess, from my perspective, the uses in, the use of the property. So I'm okay with it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Coutier.
Thank you. And I want to say thank you very much to Mr. Harkness for the presentation. It certainly added to the report that Mr. Oster presented to us. So I think we have a fairly good understanding of the whole thing. I would prefer a deferral over a denial myself, because of what the additional information. I think if staff could have a second look at it just to confirm the various numbers. I do like, I respect the amount that Mr. Harkness is investing in the property and fixing it up and making it look more residential than industrial, if I can use the phrase. Nonetheless, the lot coverage is above our normal limits, and therefore, a variance will be required. But I will say, based on numerous properties I've seen in our township, I'd rather have one larger building than the clutter that appears on the back of many a property. So I'm open to it, but I prefer that Mr. Harkness and Mr. Oster spend I'm afraid, a little more work on this just to confirm where we're going, and that one of the conditions of any approval in the future, I would hope, would include removal of all outbuildings other than cottage and garage, as Mr. Harkness has proposed. So I'm leaning towards deferral, because I think if with complete information, there's a reasonable chance that I might approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kuchar. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brad, just for confirmation, if you could please, does the cover on the boat port make a difference in lot coverage?
Through the chair to Member Matthews, it would. So the definition of lot coverage in the zoning bylaw would include that structure within the calculation.
So if he just kept the slip, that's not counted, but because it has the cover on it, it is.
Correct.
Okay, and I tend to be sort of in agreement with Member Jarvis that, you know, it's down at the water and the rest is up on the hill. But if Mr. Harkness is prepared to remove that and it helps to bring the lot coverage numbers down, I think I would be in favor of the deferral, just so that you two gentlemen can have a chance to sort of get your ducks in a row. And Mr. Harkness, I appreciate your presentation. Best one I've ever seen from inside of a vehicle or a pickup truck, whatever you happen to be driving.
Yeah.
Well done. Because to me, there's several confusions. There's 13.9% when you bought it. We're going to 16.6, and now you're saying down to 15%. Some of these buildings are going to be removed. Some of the stairs, I think we need to get, you know, solid numbers and confirmation that the stairs will be removed, the boat port will be removed. And if we're going from 13.9% to 15%, that's like a 1% additional. It's starting to come more in line to me with being minor. So I would support the deferral personally.
Mr. Matthews, could I make a comment to that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 13.9 didn't include the 312 square foot for the cover. If I added that on, that takes it up by 312. And if I added that to the 15, that's where Brad's 16.6 comes from. So the delta shifts exactly the same amount, whether you have, you know, the boat cover accounted for or not. That's the thing, that boat port wasn't counted by me in the beginning, and it's not counted by me now, because again, it's an immaterial point because I can remove it. That, you know, but the delta is the same.
Appreciate that, but to my point, I think, you know, if you and Mr. Oster could get on the same mathematical equations and come back to us with a proposal, then I would be fully supportive of that.
Okay. Thank you, Member Matthews. I get a sense here that the request has been changed from denial to deferral, and for all of those that have been involved in these deferrals before, it's just a point worth mentioning to make it clear that when I read the motion for deferral, so we need to be in agreement on that deferral. The motion does not get defeated. So having said that, I will read the motion. I had
additional question, Tom, do you mind?
Certainly, go ahead.
This is for Brad. Brad, is it? I failed to see, and maybe I was misinterpreting. Is there a comparison of lot coverage with those 3 outbuildings versus lot coverage with the garage and without the 3 outbuildings?
So through the chair to Member Jarvis, when staff prepared the notice to send out for the lot coverage, that 16.6% did not include the smaller accessory land-based accessory structures, but it did include the boat port. So if the application were to come back to the committee based on the comments from Mr. Harkness, you would see the lot coverage to be reduced by the amount that the boat port represented.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is, we know what the square footage was of the 3 buildings that he's proposed currently to take down, not including the boat port. So I'm just questioning if what the difference is percentage-wise in lot coverage with the 3 outbuildings and no garage addition versus the removal of the 3 buildings and the proposed addition. Because I'm wondering what the difference is there, if it's how significant that is. or an insignificant, as the case may be.
Yeah, so through the chair to member Jarvis again, we could definitely look at that through the application. If it were to come back to
Right. Okay.
subsequent, we could
I
take that
appreciate that if that
analysis.
happened. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Are there any other questions or comments before I read the motion?
Mr. Hill,
Okay.
if I had one quick one, whether it's worth requesting a second public meeting on this, if there's going to be significant changes to the lot coverage, although we don't really have any objections, perhaps a second public meeting isn't required. Just maybe.
Well, just so that we're clear, that's a very good question, Mr. Matthews. If we defer this application, then it will come back before committee for the similar discussion as we had today. So I think that opportunity is there.
I don't think it will be a public meeting, Mr. Hill. That's my only comment. And perhaps Brad has a better comment than I.
So the Planning Act would only require one public meeting to be scheduled and held for this application. If the lot coverage request was to be reduced, then technically the Planning Act would be satisfied in terms of public meeting. But ultimately it is up to the committee if they would prefer it to come back to a subsequent public meeting. I would just recommend including that in the resolution.
Personally, I have found when things get deferred and there's changes, whilst we as committee members get to see that, not always does the public. And I just kind of looking at transparency and making sure that the public has an opportunity to input. I agree with you, with Mr. Oster. If the numbers are going down, it's less of a application than originally scheduled. But Mr. Coutier.
I was just going to the best of my knowledge, is if what we're looking at is less than what the public has already been notified about, then we don't need another public meeting. And the public got a chance to comment on something where there would be 16.6% lot coverage. If it turns out that we're discussing something that's less than 16.6%, then it's less than what the public saw, and therefore, shall we say, the public shouldn't object to something. If they didn't object to 16.6, they shouldn't object to something that's less than 16.6, if you follow me.
Ironically, I follow you perfectly, Mr. Coutier. So. No, I agree. And if there were no letters of objections, perhaps a second public meeting really isn't required. So I'll withdraw that suggestion.
Yeah, and I think historically, Member Matthews, you'll see that when this comes back after deferral, there is an opportunity to ask questions and carry forward. So I think concern is addressed in that way. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, I'll read the motion. And the motion is moved by Member Demkew, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers the minor variance application A21-05 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 30 Heath Valley Trail to facilitate the construction of an addition onto the existing detached garage for reasons detailed in the Planning Services Report 2021-40. All those in favor, please signify by raising their hand. The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Harkness, and the Planning Department will be back in touch about the next steps. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. All right, our next application, I'll wait until we have the applicant present? Okay. Our next application is A21-06 for 333 Steep Rock Road. And for the benefit of the applicant, our process today is that we will, the planning department will review the application that you've submitted before the committee. Following that, we will have mention of any correspondence that we received, and you will have an opportunity as the applicant to provide any additional comments to add to what the planner has said already. Any members of the public who might be in attendance could speak to the application, and following that, the application will be brought before the committee for the opportunity to either approve, deny, or defer the application. So having said that, I would ask the planner to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to reshare my screen here. Mr. Jarvis, can I get a head nod if you can see my screen? You're the only one I can see. Thank you. So our next application is A21-06 that was submitted for 333 Steep Rock Road. The applicant, through this request, requested a variance to facilitate the construction of a detached garage with a sleeping cabin on the subject property. There we go. So this table details the two provisions that are requested for relief through this application. The first one being the maximum building height. So as you are aware, the maximum building height for a detached garage with a sleeping cabin in our zoning bylaw is 5 meters, and they are requesting 5.1 meters, as well as they are requiring a rear yard setback reduction from 10 meters that is typically required to 2.5 meters. So here is a general overview of the location of the subject lands. As you can see, it is located in the southeast area of 6 Mile Lake community, just north of Whites Falls Road, and is accessed via Steep Rock Road. Here we have an aerial image of the subject lands. As you can see, there's an existing cottage right here close to the shoreline with docking structures to the shore. So here we have the survey that was submitted as part of the application. As you can see here, the proposed, and I will zoom in on the next slide, but as you can see here, the proposed garage location is located to the rear. And of course, you know, given the subject lands, you know, they have a great frontage. However, it is quite a not very deep lot. So that is where the rear yard setback requirement is, because of course the applicants have done their best to make sure that that garage structure is located as far away as possible from the shoreline after consultation with staff. So that is essentially why the garage was proposed in that location. So again, just zoomed in a bit closer here. This is the location of the proposed garage, and again, the existing dwelling located closer to the shoreline. So as you are aware through my planning report, at this time, staff are actually unable to provide an opinion to the committee in regards to this application due to some additional information that will be received soon in regards to the potential redevelopment of the dwelling as well. And once staff was aware of that, we felt it inappropriate at this time to do a policy review without knowing the extent of what is being proposed for the main dwelling, because that obviously has a substantial impact on whether an accessory structure of this sort could be supported or not. So we're asking for a deferral of committee today to allow us to obtain that information and do a proper policy review based on the entire build out of the property that's being proposed. We did receive 4 letters of support on the application, and no other additional correspondence has been received since that date. And again, the outset of our planning report was requesting deferral at this time. So the applicant's agent, Lindsay, is here to answer any questions. If you did have any questions on the garage structure that is being proposed in front of you today. However, again, just to reiterate, at this time, no recommendation from staff. so we can review the proposed dwelling as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. Madam Secretary, do we have any correspondence in this application?
4 letters of support were received from Andrew Monroe, Jamie Horvat, Jeff and Kim Sunoga, and Caroline Arsenault and David McLennan.
Okay. I would ask the applicant, do you have anything to add to the comments from the planning department?
Sorry about that. I couldn't get my thing unmuted. No, we're ready to defer. We are working on plans for a renovation to the cottage, and after speaking over with Victoria, we think it's best that we present everything that's going on with the lot to make a decision.
Okay, thank you very much. I notice that there are no members of the public present. So seeing that, I will close the public session, bring the application before the committee. And I have before me a motion moved by Member Kuchar, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers the minor variance application A21-06 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 333 Steep Rock Road to facilitate the construction of a detached garage with a sleeping cabin above. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
I have a question, Tom. Do you mind if I just bring something in really quickly?
Go ahead.
Sorry about this, guys. I'm curious. I see that the proposed garage, as it currently stands, I know we're looking at deferring all this, is right over top of a septic bed. Is that correct, Victoria? And would that be part of the consideration for everything else that's going on?
Correct. So that was one of the things that triggered me and Lindsay to get build in our conversation of, and that's where it came about that a proposed new septic system likely is going to occur due to the dwelling being reproposed. So all part of that conversation, you will have all that information in front of you when a decision is, when we're ready to make a recommendation.
Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then if I could have a show of hands for all those who are in favor of deferral. Okay, the decision is unanimous. The application is deferred. Thank you, everyone, and we will await our next applicant. Okay, I see we have some new attendees. And our next application is A21-07 for 6 Island 1800 in Cognishine. And I would just, of the applicant that's just joining us, our procedure today, with an overview of the application from the planning department. Following that, the applicant will have an opportunity to speak to the application, as would any member of the public that would be in attendance. Following that, we will close the public session, bring the application before the committee for a decision to either approve, deny, or defer the application. And with that in mind, I would ask the planner to present the report.
Just going to bring up the presentation. All right. So this is the public meeting for minor variance A21-07. The applicant is Clive Chamberlain, and Mike Dupuy is acting as the agent. The subject property is located at 6 Island 1800 within the Cognishine waterfront community. And the applicant is requesting variances to facilitate the addition to an existing legal non-complying dwelling. The entire addition would be set back more than 20 meters to the high water mark of Georgian Bay. As part of the review, planning staff did note that the proposed width of the dwelling does exceed the maximum that is permitted within the Cognoscine waterfront community. And we just wanted to point that out to the applicant to give them the opportunity, if they wish, to revise that dwelling width prior to the application returning to the committee, should it be deferred today. And further to that, planning staff are recommending deferral pending the completion of a site visit, which was not able to be completed due to the COVID restrictions that were implemented after the public, after the notice of the public meeting was sent out. So just as an overview of the variances that are requested through this application, they're requesting an increased maximum gross floor area expansion of 82%, where 25% is permitted under the zoning. An increased dwelling width expansion of 13.5 meters, where 6 meters is permitted, and also a reduced front yard setback to an attached deck of 14 meters, where 16 meters is permitted. So here we have an overview location map of the subject property located here. It's immediately south of Smith's Island and about 1 kilometer west of Weber Island. The 2018 aerial imagery showing some of the existing development on the property being 2 docks. There are 2 sleeping cabins on the property, as well as the existing dwelling and small accessory structures. So this is the site plan and survey that was submitted with the application, showing all of the existing development, the 2 sleeping cabins, the existing dwelling, the proposed addition. There is a dryland boathouse and 2 docks on the property. The applicants have also identified a septic envelope in compliance with all of the zoning requirements. It meets the minimum 30-meter setback to the high water mark. So just a zoomed in screenshot of that site plan for a little bit more information. So you can see here that the proposed addition is set back at the closest point 20.85 meters from the high water mark. And then that septic envelope that is identified here with the 30-meter setback. Here are the elevation drawings of the proposed addition. You can see it here. It is in compliance with all of the height requirements under the zoning bylaw. So just a review of the policy, staff have not been able to take a thorough or detailed analysis and present an opinion to the committee today because we weren't able to get out there to complete that site visit. There were 3 letters of support and no objection that were received as part of the circulation. 1 letter received after the publishing of the report that did identify they were in support of the requested deferral. And through the staff report, staff are recommending deferral pending completion of the site visit. So that concludes my presentation. If the committee has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And the applicant and their agent are both in attendance today.
Thank you, Mr. Oster. Madam Secretary, do we have any correspondence on this application?
2 letters of support were received from David Drinkwater and Derek Keddy. 1 letter of no objection was received from Courtney Murgatroyd, and 1 letter in support of deferral was received from the Cognoscine Cottagers Association.
Thank you, Marcia. I notice the applicant is present. Is there anything that you wish to add to the planner's comments?
Just I guess a question for Brad. When we measure the width of a building, in this case, the width is measured parallel to the front yard, if I'm not mistaken. How do we establish the front yard on this one? Because it's an island, more or less an island.
Yeah, so the dwelling width would be measured at the, again, the definition in the bylaw is the widest part of the dwelling. So in this case, with it being an island property, both sides of that property would be considered the front yard.
Okay, so if I don't know if you can bring up the site plan we had there, or it doesn't matter. I just pardon me. Because the building is not parallel, the front face of the proposed is not parallel to the front face of the existing, we got to pick one of those as our baseline. So if I look at the existing structure, the one that's got the hatching around the edges, if I consider that the front, if I measure the width of the other building, I have to be parallel to that. So it's not actually the length of the building, it's going to be a projected number. So I'm guessing it's like 80% of the number that's declared. If that makes any sense to anybody?
So the existing dwelling width would probably be measured from this corner here, straight across to this corner, being the widest part of that dwelling.
Right.
And then in the addition of the proposed here, you would then essentially continue that straight across to here so that you get the widest part of that dwelling.
Right. Once you establish the widest part of the building, you use that line and you measure 90 degrees to that, and that gives you your width, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just, when I saw the increase in the width, it looked a little high compared to the number I had. That's all. Anyway, that aside, I think one of the reasons we're here, I think the only reason we're here is because a portion of the existing building is on the wrong side of the required setback, pardon me, which makes the building legal non-compliant. That's not that hard to figure out. I guess where we're at is the addition is completely on the good side of the line, as in the whole 100% of the addition is more than 20 meters from the required setback. What's happening is the project is being, I don't want to use the word penalized, but the project is being put into a position where the existing is affecting the proposed. If we were building a brand new structure, if we were putting something up 10 times that size in that same location, we would be okay. But because we're coupling it to an existing structure, we're bound by the legal non-compliance section, and it is seriously restricting the ability to do what's going on here. It's a large piece of land. There's lots of room for everything that we need. The building is very in keeping with the neighborhood. It's a little bit taller than the existing, but it's not a two-story monster. It's not this very large mass on the shoreline. In my mind, it's kind of fitting into what's going on, but we're having to abide by the legal non-compliant status of the existing structure. I know in the past, which may not be relevant, the rule was anything that's new, as long as it's compliant, then you're okay, you just apply for a building permit. But because it sounds like there's been a change in the application or interpretation of that bylaw, that's now putting us in a position where the existing is impacting the ability of the new stuff to be put in, as we have to deal with the structure as a whole. And if any portion of it is non-compliant, then the whole thing is deemed non-compliant. So this is more of a finicky bit of rule here than it is anything else, based on where I'm sitting. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. The drawing explains everything else. They're adding some additional living space to a cottage. The family's growing. It's been in the family three. Adam will speak shortly here. It's been in the family 3 or 4 generations. It's been enjoyed by God knows how many people, and they want it to be enjoyed by God knows how many more people. So it all kind of makes sense. We're just having to get past this legal non-compliant situation. I think Adam does have a few words he wants to say, so I'll leave it to the committee to get to him.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to this application?
Mr. Chair, my name's Adam Chamberlain, and I am the son of the applicant, property owner Clive Chamberlain. And it would be, I'd like to say a few words if that's all right.
Please proceed.
Thanks very much. I won't repeat everything that Mr. Dupuis has said. We acknowledge that there's been some change in the way the bylaw has been interpreted over time, but we have no trouble with the fact that this is entirely appropriate, that this should be considered for a minor variance, so that the process we think is completely appropriate. We do think this is appropriate as well for granting this as a minor variance. And I just want to speak in addition to what Mr. Dupuy has said, and I just will adopt all his comments without repeating them. But want to make it very clear that one of the things we as a family have done, and by the way, there are 4 generations in this particular part of the island, and there's 6 generations that have been present on the rest of the island as well. We take very seriously the maintaining of the neighborhood. That is this nature and the character of the neighborhood. And one of the things we sought to do when we looked at doing this improvement is not to start all over again and build something significant that would change fundamentally the nature of the aesthetic and of the sense of community of this island and the surrounding areas. So we were quite careful in directing the design, not at the time not knowing that we were going to have to go through this process, frankly, not realizing that this would be the case, but nonetheless it is. But we were very deliberate from the beginning to ask for a design that would move away from the water, that would be nestled within the trees. One of the things you don't see, and this is one of the reasons I think it's so important that staff has the opportunity to see this site in person, is that the cottage is nestled within very large trees. These are trees, of course, that didn't exist when the cottage was built, but they do now, and they're quite substantial. And if anything, the addition, not only does it move back into the island, it moves back among the trees. So we think, and we think that the nature and character of the neighborhood, that is the view from the water or other vantage points in the area, would not be affected negatively. I would also note that there's at least some support for this view from the fact that there has been support expressed by neighbors, and certainly no objections that I'm aware of. So we were very careful to do this and to protect the nature of the landscape. And I just want to make that comment as very clear for the time being. And I've already said it, but I'll just repeat. We do think it's important that staff have the opportunity to see this. What we're asking for is a minor variance. And I am aware of the fact that if you just look at the numbers, you could say, oh, this must be a very big change and must be stark in its effect. Our view is that it's not a particularly big change. It's not a particularly big cottage. And what we're describing is adding on what in numbers looks like a significant amount of space. But in our view, when you take it together with the size of the lot, the ability of the lot to absorb and sustain the septic, the vegetation and what have you, that this is a minor variance, that a minor variance is not just a numerical calculation one makes, but one that has to consider all of these other factors that I'm describing and others that are in the report from staff. So we think this is an appropriate process. We think that it ought to be considered, but we also think that it's very important that you hear from your staff. And so as a result, we of course are not objecting to a deferral so long as it allows staff to get out there. And we look forward to a change, hopefully in the next short while, to the restrictions related to COVID that will allow staff to come to the site and see it for themselves and be able to confirm the sorts of things that I'm describing. So I think those are all my comments. And as I say, I am adopting Mr. Dupuy's comments as well, without repeating them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. And I do not see any members of the public in attendance, but if I'm missing someone and there are additional comments, I do see a couple more people. Please feel free to identify yourself and step forward. I see a Steve Schaller and Courtney Margatroyd.
Yeah,
do you wish to add?
Sure, it's Courtney Murgatroyd here, neighbor on Weber Island, and just here as a supportive neighbor to say that we applaud the Chamberlains for what they're doing and in full support.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Schaller, is there any comment from you?
Yeah, hi. It's I own the property on Hatamanga Island, which is has the two docks that you saw in the initial picture. So I'm just a little bit north, I guess, northeast. of the property that's owned by the Chamberlain family. So no, I out of curiosity, quite honestly, I'm participating today because this is the first hearing that I've been able to be a part of. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have absolutely no concerns with regards to the plans that I see in front of me here with regards to what the Chamberlain family is looking to accomplish. I support, as a property owner myself, I support the ability to make a property something that is going to work for each and every individual family going forward. Circumstances change. And so provided that the bylaws are respected with regards to anything that would be an environmental consideration, I have no concerns with regards to what's being proposed today.
Thank you very much. I think that covers everyone, but if there's anyone I've missed, please identify yourself. So not seeing anyone, I will close the public session of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Kuchar.
Thank you very much, Chair Hill. Well, I certainly respect the thought that it'd be good for staff to have a look at the site. Based on everything I am seeing, I'd be very surprised if staff came up with any objection to this proposal. I mean, a couple of numbers look very impressive just because the way they're calculated per the rules and regs, but the resulting cottage will be under the maximum allowed under the bylaws otherwise. And so I would be, as I said, I'd be very surprised if I would end up objecting to this application. And I'm looking forward to the rules and regs allowing our staff to have a visit on site. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kuchar. Member Jarvis.
My comments are the same as Mr. Kuchar's, so I have nothing more to add. I was actually quite adamant against this, considering the large numbers that were initially presented, but now understanding things a little bit better, it makes more sense. And as I said, I'm in agreement with the comments made by Mr. Kuchar. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jarvis. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I would agree with my previous members. Initially, it's pretty scary when you see an 82% request. So can't always just judge it by the report. So I appreciate the presentation from Mr. Dupuy and Mr. Chamberlain. I would, however, support the planning staff in giving them the opportunity to get out there and just confirm and be perfectly clear in their own minds. And quite frankly, it might give me a chance to get down there and have a site visit as well. So I would support the deferral.
Thank you, Member Matthews. Member Demke.
Chair Hill. Yeah, I think the input from Mr. Chamberlain and Mr. Dupuy may well help once the staff gets out there to consider the whole thing. And our basic premise is that until staff sees the site, we can't really make any decisions because they may find some stuff that is good or bad, more information. So I'd support the deferral till staff can get out there. It's unfortunate about COVID, but hopefully we can get over that soon.
Thank you, Member Demke. If there are no further questions or comments, I will read the motion. It's moved by Member Kuchar, seconded by Member Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment defers the minor variance application A21-07 to zoning bylaw 2014-75 for 6 Island 1800 Georgian Bay Shore in Cognizine to facilitate the construction of an addition to an existing legal non-complying shoreline dwelling pending the completion of a site visit. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you very much for attending, and we will move to our next application.
I'm muted. We're just moving everybody in and out. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, so has everybody moved in or out? All those that are not here, please raise your hand.
We now have the perfect. Now we have the agent and owner, and I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Thank you.
Okay, and before that, I'll just introduce our application. Our next application is A21-06 for 49 Little Chute Landing Road. And before we begin, for the benefit of the applicant, the way the proceeding will run today is that first, the planning department will present an overview of the application. Following that, we will read any correspondence that was submitted. And at that point, the applicant or its agent may take the opportunity to add any additional comments to what the planning department have provided, as would we allow any comments from any public that were in attendance. Following that, we'll close the public session, bring the application before the Committee of Adjustment for a decision to either approve, deny, or defer the application. Having said that, I would now ask the planning department to provide their overview.
Thank you very much. So our final application for the day is application A2108 that was submitted by IPS Consulting, Inc. on behalf of John Riddle and Briar DeLang Riddle. So the subject lands are located at 49 Little Chute Landing Road. And the overview of the application is a request to permit an expansion of existing additional decking on the dwelling, 2 covered porches, a sunroom, and a detached garage. So here we have the table of the requested variances. So a general overview, which I will identify in the following slides on the site plan. But essentially, the request includes a front yard setback to the dwelling of 6.6 meters, where right now 9.9 meters exists. A front yard setback to a deck of 4.8 meters, where approximately 8 meters does exist. A lot coverage of 12%, where 10% is permitted, as these lands are located on the Gloucester Pool side of Whites Falls Road, and recognizing an existing situation with separation between a accessory structure to the main dwelling of 1 meter. So again, here's just the general location of the subject lands located to the south of Whites Falls Road, as you can see here. And here we have an aerial image of the subject land. So the main dwelling is located here, a bunkie structure, an existing garage that is proposed to be removed, and with the new replacement being located in the general same location. It actually might have already been, I believe it was already actually removed. So the agent can confirm that in her presentation. And also a dock and boathouse structure on the shoreline. So here we have an overview of the entire subject lands. And again, I will zoom in on the next slide. So in essence, for committee to understand the purpose of this application, so for those who were able to get on site, again, we're dealing with a property with an extremely steep shoreline area. So unfortunately, the owners of the lands are unable to really use much of their land in front of their cottage for recreational purposes. And therefore, that's why they are requesting an expansion to their existing deck, as you can see here, a covered porch off the existing dwelling, a screened sunroom. Of course, as we know, the bugs can get pretty nasty in the summertime, and just a small covered porch to the rear, just for some weather protection on the back door. And then the new garage structure to the rear of the subject of the existing dwelling. It is important to note that staff have been able to confirm that the proposal here, anything that has to do with the expansion to the existing cottage with the decking and the covered porches, would meet the lot coverage. The increase in the proposed lot coverage is in order to permit the garage to be built. So just wanted to clarify that for everybody. So the applicant's agent was able to provide some really great elevations for committee's review to help understand the extent of what the increase in overall scale and built form is being proposed here. So here we have the east and west elevation. So this would be the elevation here looking from the water. So as you can see, the addition of the screen porch, that's really going to be the extent of what, from a width perspective, you're going to see a change in the overall built form. And here we're looking at the side of the structure. So here we have the covered porch area protruding towards the water, and then the covered porch on the rear back door. And here we have some wireframe elevations that again really help identify the proposed scale of what's as part of this application in front of you today. So again, here looking from the water, this would be where that covered porch would be proposed, the existing decking to allow for more space for, to make it actually usable. As if you went to the site, you could see that the existing deck along the front of the dwelling is quite narrow. And then here, again, the screen porch room, as well as the covered porch onto the back door to allow for some protection from the elements. And then another angle here, just showing the covered porch and screened area. So here we have some site photos. So as you can see here, the existing dwelling, as well as the bunkie that is to be retained. And then so the back covered porch here would essentially be to cover this area, again, for the elements. Here we're looking down towards the water, again, just identifying that steep slope down and illustrating how this area is really, unfortunately, unusable for the subject property. This is the location on the existing deck that the screened porch is being proposed. And then again, looking out from the deck towards the water and some of the existing vegetation that is there and is proposed to remain. And then here, this is what I was mentioning before. As you can see, it's quite a narrow decking. So really the applicants are proposing to extend it closer to the water and then bring out a covered porch here with pillars. And then another shot of the existing front wall of the cottage. And then here looking down from going towards the dock, again, you can see here a very large rock outcrop here that has taken away most of their front shoreline. So planning staff are of the opinion that the application does conform to and does not conflict with the applicable planning policy documents and does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. We received 1 letter of no objection, and we have not received any additional correspondence since the report was published on Tuesday. So again, the report recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions shown on the next slide. And for committee's consideration, these are all typical conditions that you are used to seeing: site plan control, municipal taxes, and that 3-year timeline. So the applicant's agent also does have a presentation that they would like to share. So we will allow Carla to share her screen now and provide maybe some more details for committee's consideration. Thank you.
Okay, if we could just hold that thought for a moment. I would ask our Secretary Treasurer if we've had any correspondence on this application.
1 letter of no objection was received from Dave Winfield.
Okay, thank you very much. And we are prepared then for a presentation from the applicant. Please go ahead.
Good morning, committee and staff. My name is Carla Tamayo. I'm a planner with Innovative Planning Solutions, and I'm the agent acting on behalf of the applicants, John and Barda Landradell, who are the owners of 49 Little Chute Landing Road. Just give me a second here to share my screen. And can everyone see that all right?
Yes, that's great. Go ahead.
Perfect. So just to save on time and to avoid repetition with Victoria's presentation I'm just going to skip to the slide here. So I believe a few of you had already visited the property, so this is just going to be a bit of a refresher with some comparison visuals with the artist's rendering. So the picture at the top here is the existing deck at the south of the dwelling, and below that we have a 3D visual showing the proposed sunroom extending onto that existing deck, as well as the proposed covered porch here on the east side of the house. This picture is showing the west side of the dwelling looking south, so the waterfront side of the property. So you see in the picture that existing deck there, and this will be extended slightly to accommodate for that covered porch. And this deck will also be extended along the length of this side of the house here. At the top is the picture of that existing deficient setback between the dwelling and the cabin. And below that is just that front elevation of the proposed garage. And as part of this application, we completed the 4 tests of a minor variance and agree with the opinion of your planning staff that the variances maintain the intent and purpose of the town official plan. The zoning bylaw are desirable for the use of the land and are minor in nature. The proposed development will support the continued and enhanced use and enjoyment of the property with no adverse impacts to land use planning considerations. And as the proposed development conforms to and is consistent with the applicable provincial and municipal planning policies. And we've reviewed the recommended conditions and have no issues or concerns. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Would the Riddells have any comment to offer from what's been presented so far?
No, I think we just would like to thank everybody for their effort, those who came to see the property, and for their reports to date. We are looking forward to being up here, and the intent is to make it our full-time home. So we're kind of thrilled to be up here.
Thank you very much. I don't see any members of the public in attendance, so with that, I will close the public portion of the meeting and bring the application before the committee for any questions or comments. And we will begin with Member Demkew.
Member Hill, or Chair Hill. Yes, I had a chance to visit the property. When I first looked at the paperwork that we got, I was a little concerned about the percentages of the setbacks, but getting there and seeing that whole steep front, I can certainly see why you need to do what you're trying to do. Aside from those sheer numbers, I'm pretty supportive that you've done everything you can. And I think the report from the building
Bill, you went mute on us.
now or the whole time? Was it all the comment?
No, we got first part, and then all of a sudden you went mute.
Oh, okay. Well, I give it what I said. The numbers sort of scare me on paper. When I look at it, I'm okay with what here. Okay now?
Thank you, Member. Yes, thank you for your comments, Member Demkew. Member Matthews.
Thank you, Chair Hill. I just have a question on one of the drawings. It showed the approximate location of the septic bed. And there's been no discussion about that. I just wonder if perhaps the planner or the homeowner or the planning department could clarify that for me.
So I can.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Victoria.
Through you, Chair, to Member Matthews, thank you for bringing that up. So I can comment on that. So the survey that was conducted for the subject property, obviously the Riddells were not the original owners of the subject lands, and the survey, without fully digging up the entire septic area, which obviously at this time we have no, staff have no concerns and the building department has had no concerns to request such a thing. So that's why on the survey you see approximate location, because being able to identify when you're on site, where that general mounding area is and the tank lid, et cetera. That's why it is approximate. However, it's important for committee to know that building department did not provide any concerns or comments on the file. And that's pretty typical for some surveys that we see where it is approximate, because again, to be able to identify the exact, that would be pretty substantial site alteration to dig all that up. So that's why you see that there.
Thank you, Victoria, for that explanation. I also wanted to congratulate Ms. Tamero on your presentation. When you had the old and the proposed new, at least for me, I guess I'm a visual learner, it really helped me understand exactly what it is that you're trying to do. So thank you for that excellent presentation.
Thank you, Member Matthews. Member Jarvis.
I'm going to admit that when I saw the overhead aerial of this thing, I thought that was a pretty substantial building already. To our planning staff, I realize that you probably said something to this effect, but that the total GFA for the buildings is okay with regards to the size of the lot, correct?
Through the chair to Member Jarvis, correct. So we've ensured and we've done all the calculations of what's existing for the total area for the cottage and what is the resulting area for the cottage when you take into consideration the porches and the sunroom. And we have no concerns. It's just the lot coverage piece for this lot that applies. And that's essentially for the garage. If they were to take the garage off their application, the lot coverage, that 12% would not be part of the request. So township staff have no concern. And again, this area does not have a GFA requirement, it being on Gloucester Pool. Just to confirm that as well.
Thank you. I too am a little concerned with the approximate location of the septic. I thought this might be a good ideal time for there to be a proper inspection and therefore to clarify where things are. But having said that, because we're working within the confines of what's asked for and the planning staff's comments, I mean, I have my reservations, but obviously it meets requirements, so I'm okay with that.
Thank you, Member Jarvis.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Victoria.
I would just like to clarify on that point to Member Jarvis's. Of course, at this time, the building department has only reviewed the application through obviously what is submitted at this point. Once detailed design drawings have been submitted as part of a building permit, the building department will still do a full review, including what they can see of capacity of the septic system. They will look they'll look for any old MOE approvals, things like that. So there is still going to be that additional review. But at this time, nothing has been flagged to assume that there will be concerns, but it will still be looked at. So just some comfort there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Jarvis. Any questions or comments, Member Coots here?
Thank you. I will admit, when I looked at this application, I thought it was a bit much. I mean, I appreciate all the various things going on. It makes a lot of sense to me. It just, the numbers seemed a bit much. And I think what it came down for me was the roof, the covered porch, whatever you want to call it, on the west side, going basically facing the water. To me, that's going to have by far the most visual impact, because it's anybody going by on the water going to look up and there's going to be that much more reaching out towards you. I did appreciate the one, I presume was a drone photograph that showed the overall property from, let me call it above, a bird's eye view. And I would imagine perhaps that covered porch is going to be to some degree behind some tree, and it looks like a large bush or something there. So perhaps the visual impact is not going to be that severe, because that's quite frankly, that's the one piece of it that for me has the most concern, not the rest of it. And I know it's not going to be enclosed. I'm not sure how much shade it's going to give you when the western sun's going to be shining straight through in the afternoon, and maybe at lunchtime it will. But that's my only real concern with this, with the proposal in front of me.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Kutsier. If there are no further questions or comments, I will read the motion. A motion has been brought forward by Member Kutsier, seconded by Member Jarvis. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance application A21-08 to zoning bylaw number 2014-75 for 49 Little Chute Landing Road to permit an expansion of additional decking, 2 covered porches, a sunroom, and a detached garage, subject to the following. A, that approval of this variance is granted and fixed to the subject site plan extent, location, scale, and use contemplated in the application. And B, that municipal taxes are paid to date. C, that a site plan control application be submitted and approved, and that a site plan agreement be executed identifying the extent of the approved development and vegetation protection areas in the manner prescribed by the applicable policies of the Township of Georgian Bay official plan as they relate to the administration of site plan control. And D, that approval of this variance expires 3 years from the date of decision if building permits have not been issued for the approved structure. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, sort of delayed reaction there by some, but thank you very much. The application is approved unanimously. Thank you very much to the Riddells and your planner, and I do agree with Member Matthews. That was an excellent presentation on what the impact of those changes are going to be. So thank you very much and enjoy your day. And with that, I will move to the next section of our agenda. In that our secretary had distributed the minutes of our last meeting of April 16th, 2021. I'm sure everyone's had a chance to review those. And I would ask if there are any questions or comment regarding those minutes. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor. Dave, you get to approve it later on. You have to put your hand down until I ask for a show of hands.
No,
Did you have a question?
I have a comment. And nice to see your face, Mr. Hill. It's been missing all afternoon, all morning. There doesn't seem to be a notification as to, on the last application, whether it was approved or denied, or at least I didn't see anything. The motion is there, but I didn't see an action plan. And I wonder if I've missed something, or perhaps Mercia can.
I will take a look.
Are you referring to 49 Little Chute?
I'm referring to.
Are you?
I don't have it in front of me. It was the last application. It's the last motion in the minutes.
Okay, there was application number A21-08 for 49 Little Chute Landing Road that we just saw the presentation on.
No, I think Mr. Cherry.
Minutes. Last
The
month's.
minute. Okay. Okay, Mercia, that.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair, to Member Matthews. Yes, you're right. It is missing, and I will add that in.
And I believe it was carried, right?
I believe so as well.
Okay.
Thank you for catching that.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mr.
Any other
Hill.
questions? Thank you, Member Matthews. Any
Well
other
done, Mr.
questions?
Matthews.
Sorry?
He said
Said
you
well
look
done,
well
Mr.
done.
Matthews.
Okay, I have in front a motion brought forward by Member Demke, seconded by David Matthews. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of April 16, 2021 as amended and will be amended and recirculated. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. Our final motion is one that was proposed by member Jarvis, seconded by member Demkew. Be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay Committee of Adjustment does now adjourn at 12:32 p.m. until June 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m. or at the call of the chair. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. The motion is carried. Thank you, ladies.